Can you see me? Hi, everyone. I don't think it was a short joke, but the AV team told me to stand on this stair. Maybe up here. Can you see me? Hi, everybody. For those who don't know me, I am Chris Primasio. Very lucky to be the CEO of the International Surf Therapy Organization. I just really quickly wanted to say, Joe Taylor, way to open the show. Woo! For those of you who don't know, many of us snap when we are cheering and excited, and rather than clapping and interrupting, and we still interrupted because my snapping interrupted. We all want to be seen, heard, and valued. And one way to do that is to be open and honest and genuine. So Joe, thank you for allowing us to be here today, trust you, and build that trust and show us how to do it. We appreciate that. So very quickly, I'm nervous because I don't want to get emotional. I haven't seen this beautiful wonder of a human being for a couple of years, and she means the world to me. And she is brilliant and doing some really cool things in Portugal. Our next speaker, Ema, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you for those words. That's really nice of you. So let me just put the time ticking here so that I don't. Hi, everyone. Good morning. If I could, I would sleep in the sea. Dear ocean, thank you for holding me. Together, I feel I can face anything. I missed being with myself. Our limit is the horizon. And these are some of the words and sentences we get from our participants back at home. And I was also dreading this moment because I know they mean a lot to me, because some of them, I heard them myself by some of our participants, which have been through tremendous ordeals in their lives, and as kids they haven't given up on hope and on trusting. And so I would just like to take, before I continue, a brief moment to say how thrilled I am to be here with you today, for many, many reasons. I think, well, my name is Emma. I'm a trained clinical psychologist. I was born and raised in Portugal, but I have an English mother, so part of my family comes from England. And it's very moving for me to be back in England, where I have childhood memories. I found out this week that my great-grandparents run a bed and breakfast on the road next to where we are, which is just unbelievable. I got some pictures of this area in the 50s. And also, I think after what seems to be becoming the aftermath of this pandemic, getting back, in a plane and traveling and meeting you all and getting to see Joe and Jamie and Chris again. Thank you for your words. You're too kind, Chris, honestly. But it is true that 4 years ago, more or less around this time, we were in South Africa, a group of 7 organizations that had never met in person. We were so lucky to be able to go through that experience. And surf therapy brought us together. For me personally, until the age of 36, I had never, set foot on a surfing board. So my background is really a very therapeutic background. And so I think it's very interesting in surf therapy to see the different backgrounds of people. Some people will have more of a surfing experience and are trying to, grow and learn more of therapeutic tools. And some people will come from more of a mental health background and are learning how surfing can be used and the ocean as a therapeutic mediator. We now also have a lot of people with training in, serious training in both areas, which is amazing. Like clinical psychologists with, trained as surfing instructors, etc. But for me, one of the most wonderful things about, getting to know this way of working and helping found this project, which I founded with Zé Ferreira, he used to be a pro surfer, and he also was looking for a way of using surfing in a way which was more probably meaningful, I would say, than just for competition. And so we met back in 2016, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we did then. But of one thing I was sure, until then, every experience I'd had as a therapist trying to help children at risk and children, from very difficult upbringings, I always felt that in a traditional clinical setting, there was something missing a lot of the time. And I felt as though there was more that I wanted to give these children. So for me, one of the wonders of being able to bring, the knowledge from a therapeutic background onto the beach and onto the ocean, I'm deeply convinced we are so privileged to be able to be doing this, where we are doing it. Because I think we all get so much out of our sessions, even as adults and as technicians. I find myself a lot of times during sessions, because I'm in the ocean, I can sort of renew my own energy, for instance. So that's just one of the wonderful sides of what we're doing. And being, obviously, as we all know, in direct contact with nature and within nature, in the ocean and at the beach, it just makes us more alive, more connected, more human. And everything we do at Wave by Wave is really about connection. I believe in surf therapy in general, but we're trying to help these kids learn to believe again in connection and in relationships and in trust. So after, my experience working in more of a clinical setting and in hospitals, and suddenly for me doing my work was being in a situation like this in which I'm in a surf therapy session and we can't go in the ocean, but we can seriously have fun just by sitting on the edge of the beach and just enjoying feeling the power of the ocean. For some of my colleagues from more of a mental health background, this is very surprising to call this therapy, but it definitely is. Also, surf therapy sometimes can surprise us, by creating suddenly these very intimate moments, very surprising moments, and sometimes a child that actually thought was not connected to us is actually choosing to share with us something, you know, that we're not sure if they've shared with anyone before, or something quite intimate. So this is also what a surf therapy session can look like. Sometimes we can play and, you know, do games and roll in the sand and have fun. Sometimes our sessions have moments which I think are very difficult to describe. In fact, I am convinced that a lot of what happens in our sessions is very difficult to put into words. Not a lot, but there's a magical element for me of what we're doing every day. No matter how much we plan a session, how well we have, you know, a program set, there are always moments in our sessions which only happen because in that day, that group of people in that beach decided to be together. And so I think it's something that for our kids is extremely important. Moments of just enjoying the moment, you know, being relaxed, dreaming, playing. These are fundamental elements of any therapeutic, you know, answer or response. Sometimes a surf therapy session can also have moments like this, where you finally catch your first wave. This is Leo. Even if you have your leash on the wrong ankle, it doesn't matter because you caught the wave. And sometimes, as you also probably know yourselves, you know, surf therapy is just being in the water, having a nice conversation. And it sounds very simple, but it isn't simple. It's actually very complex to be able to reach these moments. A lot of thought has to go into preparing these sessions, getting to know these children, and understanding how we can, well, basically build trust, which is why we are here today to talk about this. So all this that you've seen is surf therapy. Very quickly, I would just like to also share with you that throughout the past couple of years, we started the project in Carcavelos, in Cascais, Portugal. We now have a second location up north in Gaia. But when ISTO sent out, you know, this challenge for the paddle out on the 10th of October, it suddenly struck me, also because we've all gone back to work and gone back to being together, that I actually share every day in Carcavelos a space with it's Wave by Wave and 3 other surf therapy projects. So we're 4 surf therapy projects working every day in the same location. We work with different populations. Lombos Praia is the name of the surf club that you know, is our sort of headquarters. Surf Art has been doing amazing work with kids from deprived communities. They pick them up from schools, and they've been doing that from, you know, much longer than we have. Surf Addict is adaptive surf, and Surf Social Wave is a project that actually is a little bit more for young adults entering the professional world and helping them to sometimes recover hope and you know, through surfing, through yoga, through mindfulness, through, you know, all sorts of support in that area. They've partnered with all these companies in the surfing world to also direct these people into being able to have working experiences. So we work together every day with different populations using surfing for, you know, social good and for, you know, the good of all. And definitely, this is what we want our sessions to look like. We want, you know, kids to be having fun, adults to be having fun, and people to go home with this thrilling, you know, feeling that so many times we do get from our sessions. But it is also true that working in the area, you know, of supporting, you know, people who've been through, namely traumatic experiences, we have to be aware of that. We can't pretend that we're not working in, you know, a difficult setting, a difficult clinical setting. And that's why today I'd like to speak to you a little bit more of what it's been like to try and build a trauma-informed care setting within a surf therapy program and organization. Because these 2 words are running side by side. And one is actually running against the other. I'm not going to explain or, you know, go into a lot of detail about what trauma is. I will just say that, you know, in very simple, in a very simplistic or simple way, it's something that you were not able to digest to process. So it's there, affecting you. It's probably too much of what is bad for you, or too little of what you need as a human being to be able to develop. So in very simple terms, you'll find children, who've either suffered neglect or abuse. And how do we build trust with children who've been through this? And particularly working in the area of therapy and childhood, I also think, and I know there, now dozens of projects around the world using surfing and working with children. I also think that if you're working in the area of childhood, you have to take time to think about child development and how trauma affects child development, because it will definitely help you understand and create space to understand sometimes some of the dramatic behaviors that children present to us, which are very difficult sometimes to deal with, and we don't want to give up on them. In fact, we will not give up on them. But to do that, one of the things that I'm also going to talk to you a little bit more about is, I think that if you're willing to do deep therapeutic work, one of the keys is the team and how you work with the team. So for my background, I'm very quickly just going to mention the name of 3 references for me. For some of you, they'll be very familiar. Maybe some of you will hear them for the first time. And so if you haven't heard about John Bowlby and the attachment theory, I strongly, really, really think that you should just, even if you just read, the general concept behind it. The idea is that as human beings, as Joe reminded us, we are born to connect. We are born in a very dependent way of, our carers, our caregivers, whether they be our parents or others. And John Bowlby developed this theory, which today is, universally used and accepted, that we create an attachment theory in the very early years. An attachment pattern in the very early years of our lives. And the thing about attachment is that for many years, people thought that, okay, you were born with this attachment pattern and you will be like this forever. But of one thing we are sure is that is not true. If you were born with a insecure or if you were brought up into an insecure attachment pattern, it is possible to move on from that and to create confident relationships, even as an adult. And I think this message of hope is extremely important. No matter what has happened to you, you can get better. And this is, for me, absolutely fundamental. Although we do work with children, for many of you, I suppose, working with adults, I think this message of hope is, for me, one of the lighthouses of my work. So very quickly, just a little quote from John Bowlby. Attachment is a unifying principle that reaches from the biological depths of our being to its furthest spiritual reaches. It's the way we connect. And so that is very deep. I'm sure we all agree. The second reference I'd like to bring here very quickly also is Winnicott. Winnicott is probably one of my biggest inspirations in understanding children. He created the first mental health services in London after the Second World War, and dealing with all the orphan children and the children subjected to serious trauma. Winnicott helps us understand children and their behavior in a way that is so inspirational for me. Every time I go back to reading him, and he reminds us of something very, very, very important, which has to do with playing, even when you're an adult. And I think I brought this quote here today, because when we're surfing and when we're in the ocean, even as adults, I've felt this myself many times. When you want to just catch one more wave, and you just want to go around and just catch another wave, and you're in that moment, enjoying yourself, not thinking about anything else. I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, it really reminds me of when I was little and I was really enjoying some sort of play that I was doing, whether it was with a doll or with a bicycle, and it's just that thrill of enjoying something there, that you're just you want to do it then. And this is fundamental for our mental health, creativity and playing. And that is why you know, I think our surf therapy sessions all around the world, not just at Wave by Wave, we help people in so many different ways, because a lot of times we see, even with adults, we do have a few sessions for adults, but not so often. We so quickly see adults becoming children again. And it's so important that adults don't forget to do that. So it is in playing and only in playing that the individual child or adult is able to be creative and to use the whole personality. And it is only in being creative that the individual discovers the self. This next quote is a little bit bigger. I'm not going to read it to you, I'll just let you read through it. But I just want to mention very quickly why this is important, because it reminds us of what childhood is. Childhood is noisy, childhood is messy, childhood is challenging, and that's how it's supposed to be. And one of the wonderful things I think about surf therapy is that it allows children to externalize, you know, their behaviors, their natural aggressiveness that we all have. And I think childhood, you know, after this pandemic, and even in this, you know, day and age of so much technology and so much staying indoors, and, you know, more and more you see children or less and less connected to, you know, natural settings, or just playing, or just enjoying themselves without having to have a gadget. So our surf therapy sessions actually offer children the possibility of being in that moment with that group of caring adults, with their peers, with no internet connection, no mobile phone, no makeup for some of the girls. We're really just as we are in our surf therapy sessions. And I just want to underline that, because I think it's just that is an extremely healing experience. I mean, even for us as adults, sometimes, you know, we go in the water, we know we're going to come out messy, you know, we have to put wetsuits on, wetsuits off. It also brings us out of our comfort zone. But I think that that is fundamental in creating truthful connections with whoever we're with. And finally, my final author is Bion, and I promise I'll move on from the theoretical background, but I owe it to these three authors and to other authors, because they do come alive a lot of times in my work every day at Wave by Wave. And to my surprise, I actually shared some of the principles of Bion's theory to the team, and until today, even, you know, the people with the surfing background and no mental health training, they use expressions by, you know, these renowned psychoanalysts, and they use them because they make sense in their everyday life. So the quote, sorry, that was a little mistake. One of the things that Bion challenged us as therapists is that when you are with your patient or with your participant, you should try and aim at listening with no memory and no desire. We know this is not possible. You know, we all have a memory, and we all have, you know, all these things going through our heads and our hearts when we are with children or with our participants. But he did remind us that we do have to have, I think what he meant fundamentally is also the capacity to accept whatever the person is bringing forward. And for me, that is, you know, always a very strong reminder. He also brought forward this idea of container and contained connected to the alpha function, okay? And I'm really going to try and share this with you as simply as possible. But when you're working with children or adults who are particularly disturbed, what will happen unconsciously, of course, is that they will throw things onto you. They will make you feel things that, you know, you come out of a lot of, you know, interactions or sessions feeling, you know, quite awkward, and sometimes quite, you might feel quite invaded, like the names the children sometimes decide to call one of the adults in the team, or sometimes it's just a feeling you get with certain children, because, you know, these subtle interactions do take place every time we have a human connection. And so basically, when we're growing up as babies and as children, we are filled with these elements that we don't actually have the capacity to think about. And so our caregivers, our parents, will do that function for us. They will receive all our elements that we don't understand, and they'll give them back to us as though they're sort of digesting us. But what happens if no one has done that for you is that those elements will continue, acting and being present in relationships. And in a therapeutic setting, they will come out even more. And so that is why we've created this action reflection model at Wave by Wave. Also it doesn't mean this happens all the time with every child, but we need to be aware that sometimes there are, in a therapeutic session, this kind of subtle, it's not interaction, the word that I'm looking for, but it will take place. And when we think about our cases in particular, when we do our clinical discussions, we really try and understand all of the elements that this child is bringing forward that we actually have to look at and try not to feel attacked, but actually try and understand the child before or after that projection, to use the correct word. Oh, sorry. Anyway, I just want to very quickly just also share with you this idea. Although I do know that, namely, in an experience like surf therapy, there could be one day, one session that you feel changed you. Okay, so I do believe that. But I also believe that in a responsible way, if you're trying to work in mental health and helping people, I don't think there is a quick fix. I think there's a lot we can do, even if we have a short period of time. At Wave by Wave, we have been quite ambitious in trying to help a particular group of children which we feel are placed in a very unlucky and unfair situation. And so while these kids are still in this situation, we will continue existing. When they are able to move forward, Wave by Wave will probably turn into something else or develop with it. So very, very briefly, I just want to share with you some of the numbers of youth at risk in Portugal. Okay, so this report has actually just come out. Sorry, this is a little bit strange, the numbers and the words, but just to give you a general overview, 76,000 children every year are referred to child protection services for, whatever reason. 9,000 are living, and 65 are living in foster institutions, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And about 160 have been placed in detention centres, which means they have committed some sort of crime after the age of 12 and before the age of 18. And we also work with one of the detention centres not very far from, where our programme runs in Cascais. And one of the things that I learned working at Wave by Wave, I wasn't aware of this. When a child is taken away from their family for whatever reason, in Portugal, for the social services to do that, it takes a lot for them to do that. I mean, something really serious must be going on for a child to be taken away. There are all these steps that are taken before that sort of final decision. But unfortunately, in the world, we are one of the countries with the lowest percentage of children that once taken away from their families are placed in another family. And so most of the kids, of those 9,065 kids, are placed in institutions still today. And these institutions are the institutions that we work with every day at Wave by Wave. They're filled with, amazing adults, amazing teams that are trying to do their best to help these kids. But of one thing we are sure is that childhood and institutionalization, sorry, that's a very difficult word, don't match. It's a crime against their humanity. And I think once we realize that, okay, we are a surf therapy project, we want to be running our camps, but we also want to be aware of this reality and trying to do whatever we can to help, change or, make this more visible. And that's why I chose to also bring this, information to you here today. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're trying to do, even with the children, to make, politics aware of this reality. It doesn't mean that placing a child in a foster family will be, always everything will run smoothly, but we are sure that the right to have a family is part of the child's human rights. Sorry, what's the word? Declaração. You know what I mean, yeah. And so even if that family will go through some problems in accepting that child, which surely, you know, it will be challenging, the level of problems are completely different from the ones that you will find in an institution where you have teams, you know, running and changing around the clock, and especially under the age of 2, and if possible under the age of 6, we strongly advocate for, you know, no child to be placed in an institution. They can be placed if it's an emergency situation. They can be placed, you know, in very particular situations. Sometimes there can be some kind of, I don't know, disability or special need, which, you know, it's difficult sometimes to find a family to match. But in most cases, these children have absolutely no responsibility of how they started out their life. And what we see in the system is that so many times the system itself is re-traumatizing these children because the process of putting them in an institution itself is traumatic. But with this, I just really want to reinforce that these institutions that I'm working with every day, over 30 institutions, they are the first ones to say that family fostering is the solution, and they want to move their teams that are working in institutions into helping these families. And we're hoping that, you know, if maybe next year, in a few years, this number of 5% will have gone up. So if these children that we're working with have been through, you know, all of these situations that I've been sharing with you, it's very natural that, you know, they will need a very specific kind of support. A lot of times when we least expect it in sessions. And I want to also run briefly with you with the concept, which has been very useful for us as a team, of adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if any of you have heard of this study or you know, amazing body of work which keeps growing. The concept of adverse childhood experiences basically allows you, even as an adult, to fill this questionnaire, which is very easy to find online. And you will basically answer questions about your own childhood. And what this study has shown is the evident correlation in between the existence of these adverse childhood experiences and your health as an adult. Not just your mental health, but also your physical health. It's quite mind-blowing, the direct link in between simply the number of traumatic experiences you went through as a child and how that will affect, you know, your whole life. And actually, it also, there's a direct connection in between that and the number of years people live. So these adverse childhood experiences can be a form of abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual. It can be a form of neglect, also physical or emotional, or it can be some kind of household dysfunction of the, you know, the environment where you came from. Someone had a mental illness, one of your relatives, you know, was in jail, your mother was treated violently, there was substance abuse in the house, or even simply divorce. So it's not surprising to find out that 60% of Americans that answered this questionnaire actually reported having in between 1 and 3 adverse childhood experience. And how do they affect us in the future? They affect our behavior. There's a direct correlation in between the number of adverse childhood experiences and your lack of physical ability, activity, the tendency to smoke, to drink alcohol, drug use, or even to miss work, for instance. It also affects your physical and mental health. There's a direct correlation in between what happened to you in your childhood and the probability of developing severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, sexual transmitted diseases, heart disease, cancer, stroke, and it goes on and on and on. For me, what was striking about this study is also the connection with our physical health. Not just our mental health, because sometimes we always associate, you know, going through a difficult experience in our childhood with our emotional health, but our physical health is deeply affected by that. And again, I won't go into too much detail, also because I'm quite conscious of time, sorry. And I will share this with anyone who would be interested in, in knowing more about this. But we do know also that trauma, that so many times we always talk about, the emotional and mental impact of trauma, there is a definite physical impact also of going through any kind of traumatic experience. It's even gone as far as being able to prove, change in ourselves, for instance, just to give you an example. So again, I won't run too deeply into this, but I think we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of the reality of, choosing to work with populations that have been through traumatic experiences, and how we need to protect ourselves as therapists so that we are in a good place to be, therapeutic. And so, this is what we're trying to do, to develop a program and a project which is trauma-informed. What does this mean? Well, I think it means exactly what I've been trying to say to you, is that we need to be aware of this. And as a team, in this space of, in this safe space, and in this vulnerable space, as a team, to be able to talk about the impact that this work is having on us. Also because we're working in Wave by Wave with children who are placed in these institutions. And so we decided very early on that we weren't quite sure how long the program was. So some of the kids that started with us in 2016 are still there. So we're doing work on the long run, which I know is not always possible. And, it's in no way saying that all programs should be like this. But for the population that we work with, this is what made sense for us. And also the institutions working with us, the social institutions, the foster institutions, they are asking us to take these children, and take them in the sea and not put a limit to that. Because for us, while they are in these foster homes, they need to be supported, they need to be supported. So, some of them have even left the foster home and started working. And, one of our participants is 21, but obviously if he wants to continue and if it makes sense to him, we will definitely have him. By the way, we work from the age of 4 up to 21. So this image is sort of trying to remind us of, how trauma suddenly can hit on us. Or as an adult working in a therapeutic session in the area of trauma, we sometimes can also feel overwhelmed by some things happening in our sessions. One of the other things that is very important if you're trying to create a trauma-informed response is you need to have guidelines in a case of crisis, in a situation of crisis where a child, for instance, has a breakdown. And this is extremely important because we have guidelines, but we never know when crisis is going to strike and when a child suddenly might have an emotional outburst or become violent or run away or start swimming on its own to the outside, and we're trying to communicate and connect with them and they simply won't connect with us. Whether there was a connection with us 5 minutes ago, but something has happened and the child is just sort of gone. So it's very important to have some sort of reference again of what to do in case you have to deal with a crisis situation. So we've learned also that the first thing is to regulate. So there's no point trying to talk to the child before they've sort of calmed down. So we do that by being next to them, sometimes just giving them some sort of reassurance and helping them sort of come out of their flight or flight response. And then we try to relate, and here there might be some space for some words and some, verbal interaction. And reasoning about what happened sometimes doesn't happen in the same day. Sometimes a child can have a crisis in a session, but we try to bring them from, regulating to relating at least, so that when they leave, they don't feel that they're leaving the session, completely disorganized. And we will say to them, look, we will speak about this next week, don't worry. And so the next week, when time has gone by, we will talk about what happened and what he was feeling and trying to find a place for all these difficult things that are happening. I'm not going to have time to run through this again in too much depth. and I'm sorry that the formatting has gone. You can read this article online. I just wanted to also underline that we have tried to invest also in research at Wave by Wave. So back in 2016, we did our first pilot project. Kids were doing 8 sessions throughout 1 month, and we did a pre and post data collection, and it was it works, as Joe reminded us very well. Even just for 8 sessions during 1 month, we were able to prove that these children were more regulated in their behavior, and they had less indicators of anxiety and depression. So this was very important when we started the project, because it really helped us sell it, so that we could continue and go on from being just a summer project to being a year-round project, which is what we are now. And then we're just now at the sort of final steps of the randomized controlled trial that, took a lot of work, as you can imagine, because we really wanted to try and prove the effectiveness of the program. And so in 2018, we started working with 89 kids and youth in foster institutions that had never been to Wave by Wave. And we divided them in 2 groups, the waiting group and the intervention group. And we were able to prove a statistical difference in between these two groups in pro-social behavior. There were other positive impacts, but the one with the statistical difference, which is what matters in a randomized controlled trial, was increase in pro-social behavior, namely, empathy and cooperation, which is, really connected to trust and to a very important mental health indicator. There was also a reduction in, risk behavior in the group that we started out working with. And funnily enough, or interestingly enough, in the waiting group, the risk behavior increased during the waiting time. Then we went on to, so the waiting group, after the first 6 months, they came onto the beach with us, and we're now working on studying, what happened to this group in terms of, everything that we were trying to research. But one of the things that also always struck me at Wave by Wave is that we have a very high level of participation. Kids don't miss a lot of sessions unless they have a consultation. So 90% participation is also, I think, a very important indicator. And it also started showing to us the preventive quality of our intervention. So not just intervention, but prevention of, really these kids feeding into this never-ending cycle of social exclusion, violence, abuse. We want to get these kids out of that cycle. That's our most, sort of biggest goal. So we've developed what we call the intervention triangle. So in the beginning, we were a summer camp. Then we moved on to being a year-round camp, which means that kids have 1 session a week with us. And throughout 1 school year, they will have the same group of adults and the same group of children in every session. So we have migrated the principles of a group therapy onto the beach. So in the beginning, this is basically what we did. We were a surf therapy response. The kids came to us in the summer or during the school year. But what we realized as time went by is that, this wasn't enough. I mean, this is the center of everything we do, don't get me wrong. But we realized we were spending so many hours also meeting and, getting to help these children with the foster institutions. So the number of hours our team spends trying to connect what happens at the beach with the adults that are caring for these children and showing them, the other sides of the children, helping to understand, their very difficult behaviors. The number of hours we have spent doing this has increased as time goes by. And then there's a third sort of vertex to our triangle, which is we can't forget the kids when they're not in our sessions. We know what's going on in their lives, so we're trying more and more to be there for them when they need us, even if it's not in the session. This is very difficult because, we work with around 50 children every week in Cascais and 20 in Gaia. And sometimes, we can't reach everyone all the time, but we have started to think about the mentorship, the therapeutic mentorship that some of our adults can, they can become mentors for these children and help them in their everyday life. Exactly how we're going to do this, we're still, in the making, but we're sure that the quality of the connections that these kids create with our adults, the reference figures that the adults become, the surf therapy adults become, has to be used in their favor. It can't just be something that's happening at the beach, because they have so many needs, these children. They have very little references, and transitioning into adulthood is probably one of the most difficult things for them. They've had much less support than most of the other kids, and they are asked to become adults much, much sooner. It's very unfair. Our intervention model is called MAR, which in Portuguese means ocean. Modelo de Ação Reflexão. So we like this little coincidence. We say that we have the MAR, the ocean. We have it like in two ways in our sessions. It's the real ocean, and it's also the model. And again, this model was sort of developed through time, and we're always, thinking about it and questioning it. But if any of these three things were removed, we wouldn't be doing surf therapy, for sure. So one of the first elements is the team in an action-reflection routine, which I'll tell you about in a few minutes. Then we've migrated the principles of the therapeutic setting into a natural environment. And finally, we're using sea and surfing as therapeutic mediators. I'm not going to talk so much today about how sea and surfing specifically work as therapeutic mediators. I'm sure a lot of the talks throughout these 3 days will probably talk about this better than I could. But of one thing I'm sure, in the area of trauma, you need a mediator. In therapy, in the area of trauma, if you sit down with a person, just asking them how they feel, it's just too difficult. So that's also one of the powers of our intervention, is that we have something to do together. We have, we're going to do something, we're going to go surfing, we're going to go in the ocean, and then everything else will unfold. So just, a quick question. The action reflection model makes us think that if we were just, arriving at our programs shortly before the kids arrived and just went in the ocean with them and just left and never sat down to think as a team, how would that leave us? Probably after some time, with no little capacity to think and to reflect and to understand these children. But if we were also always in a reflection mode, we wouldn't actually be helping them. So for me, this is one of also the wonders of our work, is that we go deep into sometimes, really trying to understand the children in, difficult descriptions of their behavior and how they make us feel and how we can understand them. Sometimes it's, it's very, very hard. And then we also go in the sea and, we do something completely different. As a team, we do both things. So the team at Wave by Wave is actually comprised of, clinical psychologists, mental health, social workers, etc., and people from a surfing or life-saving background. But we all participate in every meeting. This is very important. At the beginning, sometimes we used to separate the meetings as though this is for the psychologists and this is for the... But now everybody has to participate, and this has actually helped us become... I thought you were going to say to me that I'm running out of time, aren't I? How long do I have? 5 minutes? 1? Oh dear. Sorry. So I'll just very, very quickly run through our basic pillars of the program, okay, which I'm sure are words which are very familiar to you. Consistency, continuity, predictability, intentionality, authenticity. And the principles of physical safety, emotional safety, respect, positive reinforcement, believing in dialogue, non-violence, etc. I'm sure these also resonate with you. Because I only have 1 minute, literally, I just want to share with you how the routine of our weeks is respecting this idea that we have to be reflecting and acting to protect our internal space. So the kids come for sessions that run for 2.5 hours, and this is what we do, and we're always aware that a crisis could take place at any moment. The team meets for 1 hour before, and they stay on for 1.5 hours after every session. And what we do in these meetings is actually set what we do in the first 10 minutes, and if anybody is interested in learning a little bit more of, how we run the project in terms of how we organize these meetings, they are extremely important to help the program run and to help adults not become, overwhelmed. So green, you have the meetings, and at the end of the week, after you've done all these sessions, there will be the team weekly meeting, which is actually a clinical discussion of the most difficult cases. And throughout the year, we also protect the team by having, interruptions no more than every 3 months, and training so that, the team is not for too long running in just, doing these sessions. So what is it like to be an adult in this context? I swear I just need a few seconds. I just want to finish by talking about the therapeutic space, which I think is something we should all be very aware of when working in this context. My therapeutic space is my safe space where I know I can make other people feel safe, in the ocean or in a conversation outside of the ocean. And then a child comes to me, looking for a conversation or to go in the ocean. And I need to be very aware of what I want to do with that child, or I'm going to do with that child, that it fits my therapeutic space, that I'm not getting into an area where, I don't feel safe, and so I won't be able to help the child feel safe. So that little green area is the potential area of growth for, the child to give us a leap of faith, I suppose. Anyway, I had more to say to you about how we adapted to the pandemic, but I'll leave that for another moment. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry about the time. Thank you. Sorry. It's okay. No time for questions.
Hi everyone. I'm Elena Hayek. I'm part of the WAVE project team. Thank you, Emma, so much for giving us an insight into your work and the inspiring words. Snap on this. I'm very happy to, questions. We ran out of time a little bit, but we have space on our Hoover app. If you have any questions, go on there. We'll be answering them on the app, all right? I'm very happy to introduce our next speakers, joining us virtually all the way from Puerto Rico. Welcome, bienvenidos, Dr. Giovanni and Josué. Welcome.
Hi guys, good morning from here. Am I ready? Okay. So today we're going to talk about surf therapy for children with additional needs. Most of our population are kids with the autism spectrum disorder, but during our years we have been able to be more generalized in terms of kids that have developmental delays. So we're going to talk a little bit about our program and how we have worked with our team during these past 10 years. And Josué is here with me. Hello. Me presentaron ahora. So just to talk a little bit about history, we know that surf therapy is something kind of new, but the use of seawater has been used for many years, actually hundreds of years. So since ancient Greece, the historian and geographer Herodotus and his contemporary Hippocrates advised the use of sea baths as a source of health. And as you guys know, since 1760, Richard Russell published The Use of Seawater, Disease of the Glands, which was the first treatise of therapy with seawater. So it's been obvious that seawater has been something very healthy for our well-being and has been used for many generations. Just as an intro, also, right now, surf therapy is still considered something alternative or complementary. So a health treatment that is not classified within the parameters of standard Western medical practice is referred as to alternative or complementary. And so at that point in time in Puerto Rico, and 10 years ago, we did an effort to develop alternative methods of intervention for children with a diagnosis of the autism spectrum disorder. It was a pilot study that measured the social and communication skills and acquired were evaluated in a pre and post test. As you guys know, most of the criteria on the autism spectrum disorder will come from social communication skills. So we were trying to prove that the exposure to surf therapy did improve or acquire skills in those areas. So just as a justification in terms of the research, we wanted surfing to be used as a therapeutic modality in different scenarios, situations, and conditions. So our justification is that surfing is one of the oldest and most practiced sports in the world, and that's said by the International Surf Association since 2010. Most health organizations recommend sports as a means of motor development, improvement of physical and mental health. And we have the scientific evidence that confirms that vigorous exercise or aerobic exercise will reduce anxiety states or that symptomatology of depression and anxiety, because neurologically we are going to be liberating neurotransmitters of dopamine and serotonin, and that's what actually helps us to lower that symptomatology. And we also know that the regular participation in aerobic exercises programs will reduce symptoms of moderate depression and improve general psychological state. So why we chose the ocean? Because contact with seawater allows a better absorption of vitamins through the body. We all know that the ocean contains all the minerals on the periodic table of Dimetri in macro and micro. Most of our patients will have genetic disorders, but also a lack of what is we call vitamins or how their body can absorb them, because they have a lot of problems in their stomach and the gut and other areas. So surfing will give us an opportunity to breathe fresh air, which are negative ions. So we breathe these negative ions after being exposed 40 minutes in salt water. They go to our bloodstream, they go to the lungs, they will alkaline our blood, and then they will help us neurologically to liberate, then again, dopamine, serotonin, which you will mix also with adrenaline, which is surfing is an active sport, and then you will get that lower of anxiety and depression, which for us was really astonishing to see kids that were not socializing, and after sessions of therapy just coming to shore and start relating with others by their own account with no guidance at all.
Well, the purpose of our organization is to integrate alternative methods, not only surfing, right, to traditional surfing services for individuals with autism and their families too, in order to expand interventions and in turn to promote a sense of well-being in participants. So one of the things that we do is to include the whole family as one in the whole therapy. Not only the patient, not only the kids, it's just a matter of getting everyone together. Our objective is this study was designed to take a closer look on the use of surfing as a tool for parents and children with autism, and how surfing can have a positive effect on the symptomatology of this population.
Um, Being a clinical psychologist, it became hard to do therapy with some kids, nonverbal kids. They were too young, maybe 2 years, and we cannot stay in that place of an office which doesn't provide some of the stimulation. And so we wanted to think outside the box. And actually, but we have been surfers our whole lives. We knew the potential that surfing had to help these kids, just to get them stimulated. But also we wanted to bring or promote that space where families could be included. We call it the system down here in Puerto Rico. We cannot work only with the kid. We need to include everybody. And most of the times we also invited other clinicians and speech pathologists or occupational therapists that will come to the therapy and help and just do better in terms of our integration.
Contributions. With this pilot study, we intend to expand the knowledge of alternative or complementary therapies that are currently available for health professionals, children with autism, and their families. Go ahead.
So then again, we lack sometimes interventions for this kind of population, and we are not scared of trying things new. I know a lot of people want to stay in their office because of all the ethics and things like that, but we like to think outside the box. And I have a brother with Down syndrome. We knew that sports were something that really helped him in his development. So it was the way of how we can prove to society that surfing was a real good tool to work with kids with disabilities. So that was also part of the contributions that we wanted to do with our pilot study. In terms of results that we got from our first pilot study, and there were significant difference that we found between participants, and we call it simplified surfing, and I'll define that really quick. It's just the most basic way you can surf, where a professional surfer will guide you and do all the work, and you will only have the experience or the good experience of getting the wave and riding the wave, when a professional surfer, which is an instructor, will do all that work for you, okay? So we used a p-value of 0.05, and we got astonishing results. The first result that we started seeing is that kids with autism were offering help to people who need it. So they were recognizing that social situation and acting upon it. When before the interventions, parents will say, look, I can fall, I can have an accident, and my kid will be there and not even react to it. So that was the first data we started collecting. After that, kids started to converse spontaneously with other people. And that started happened in the shore. So kids were coming from the surf therapy. There were other kids in the shore, and they were just getting there and trying to talk and trying to relate and building sandcastles or just having fun in shore, which was something that also shocked parents and ourselves because there were few interventions when we started seeing these results. Kids started to like to share in social activities, and this is something really big for families, because most people know if I have a kid with autism, I'm not going to be able to go to the cinema, not going to be able to go to the restaurant. Most parents will say, look, take the other kid to the birthday party, I'll stay here, because of this social situation, which they are also, their conduct is not well enough, sometimes, and people, it's an atypical conduct, and people feel really uncomfortable. So parents start not to socialize and stay at home. So when we started seeing that these kids were really engaging with others, it was really shocking for us also. They started showing empathy towards others, and we call that socialization at some point, recognizing feelings on others, which is something really complex sometimes. They started providing information and asking questions when we were talking. Most of the time, kids that are verbal will stay to the yes or no, very simple answers. And now we started seeing conversations or engaging a little bit more in that social communication. They were that eye contact or looking at the face was also something that increased a lot during the surf therapy program. Understand when somebody needs help, which it kind of relates to offers help, but it was we started seeing kids that if a parent will have an accident, will call 911, which is the emergency call down here in Puerto Rico and the States, and things like that. So they were recognizing and acting correctly in order or to that situation. They were speaking in a normal tone. Most kids with autism or developmental delays will have this stereotype tone when they act, which people look at them if they're from another country because they express themselves differently. That tone started to regulate, and it was measured by speech pathologists, which was really also a really good improvement in their social communication. And he started responding to his name. Most kids with autism and other developmental delays will see himself as a third person, but now we saw him just really reacting to his name and engaging with others. So our post-test scores were almost 3 times higher. It was 70.9% of those of the pre-test, and that provided the necessary scientific evidence to affirm that the study participants showed great progress after being exposed to the intervention of surf therapy.
So this is basically our group that we changed from surfers that want to collaborate with us. Like, we're pretty open to any kind of surfers. In these pictures, there are bodyboarders, there are surfers, longboarders, paddleboarders, pro surfer, cooks, you name it. So we basically integrate whoever wants to help us in this, in the, in our sessions. Whoever wants to bring some help, we just integrate everyone. Our purpose basically is to offer these alternative therapeutic services. One of the things that we do have, that we're very grateful about it, is our surfing spot that we have selected for doing these therapies. Give us the advantage to include, not only family members, just common people from the beach, and like I mentioned, anyone who's related to surfing. Gladly, our spot is pretty calm on the shore area, and then you just paddle out a little bit out to a sandbar where the little waves provide us this, right size of wave to do the therapies. Again, this is a group that is pretty well diverse. We're pretty open to anyone, and we bring anyone that can bring help.
And as you can see, we have men, we have women, we have every skin tone in Puerto Rico. That's not an issue. We have been talking about this for a long time. We are a mix of Spaniards, African heritage, and our Taino Indians. So as you can see, this is our community, and look, we do open our doors to every single person that wants to be a voluntary, but they do have to need to show us some skills. We do have a team that works in therapy every Saturday. That team is more selected, and they have to have these hours of intervention and do some training with us. But when we do big events, which is something that we have been able to do in order to include community in general to our program, we are more flexible in who can participate, because we work with like 200 to 250 kids on those events. So we need a big group of volunteers in order to achieve our goals during that day. So who is served for them? Okay, so we serve for the development of emotions and motor skills. That's the translation in English. Our mission has always been to offer children, teenagers, and caretakers affected in any way by the autism spectrum disorder an environment of aid and ease in order to connect and share through the creation of these opportunities of enjoyment that help with the therapeutic benefits of CERT therapy. And there's nothing wrong to have fun in a therapy. We have been talking about this for a long time. We're working with kids. We want kids to not even recognize they are in a therapy. We want kids to understand they are coming to the beach, they're getting better, but this is a safe space for them, and a space where they can be themselves and they can improve in all the acquisition of skills that they do. Our vision is to involve children with autism, their caretakers, families, therapists, surfers, and the general community in a more compassionate, complete, and inclusive experience, which celebrates the therapeutic benefits of surf therapy. And through our program, we have been able to educate community. And that's not done by doing being in the news or things like that. It's being consistent. It's being there every single week. It's proving that we are experts on what we do, and that we work with these kids no matter what. We are all voluntaries in our organization. So that's compromise, and people see it. And that um, that being consistently there every single week, and seeing us working with the kids and seeing most of the kids develop through our program has gotten the community really involved also, and just believe in the surf therapy.
Well, our goal is to unlock the full potential of children with development deficiency, to support education about autism, and promote its study and research. If they can learn the way we teach, if we teach the way they learn, right?
And,
Go
and
ahead.
this is what got us to go to the beach. Okay, so we understood as clinicians that um, the space of the office wasn't enough, and we needed to go out there and to explore. So all this research that we did 10 years ago, we started like exploratory research to try to understand the benefits, and we practice what we preach. We had to go out there. We have to create new programs. We have to create better spaces, and it's working. As you all know, it's working with so many populations across the globe, and this is what actually get us really excited about surf therapy. Surf therapy is a tool that's working with all these populations across cultures, across professions, and we got something huge, and we kind of prove it in the special issue when we published 2 summers ago. um, Great research is being done. This is a start, okay? So we have to keep evolving and keep developing research in order to take this from a complementary or alternative method of intervention to an evidence-based program, in order to get all that respect that we will need in order for other clinicians to understand that this is something that works and works all the time.
One thing that I want to add as a personal experience, I remember when I was a kid, I was hanging out at my grandma's house, and one of the neighbors had autism, and he was just rocking on his chair on the balcony the whole day. And then my family always instructs me not to go there, right? Because the kid was crazy. And that was something that was, always in my head until I met Giovanni and he brought me up to this research part. And I started seeing and learning a little bit more about autism, and being a surfer, and knew that surfing has always put me in a state that I feel really good. I was always happy after surfing. It was a really good feeling, and seeing all these kids having that experience, I broke that thought that I had with autism that was created by my family, right? And with years and years working with Giovanni, I just learned that this surfing therapy had a lot of potential, not only for kids with autism, but for the whole community. And people can get, family members could get included into this whole setup in the beach, that everyone, when they left the beach, they were like, this is astonishing. These results are just amazing.
And and we also talk about if we can educate that community which is in Hobos Beach, Isabela, Puerto Rico. If you look at the census of that area, there's a lack of education. If we are able to educate these kind of people that doesn't have an education or a formal one, we can do it globally. It's just being out there and showing people, look, that kid at first may have a tantrum, sensory wise can be overwhelmed, but if we are consistent and we are working with them hand on hand and we are really patient, that kid through the therapies will not act that way. It will get better really soon. We have some cases that maybe they lasted a little bit longer in order to calm themselves or regulate themselves, but every single patient that we have in our program gets better, and that's the motor that keep us going, and really like with a lot of energy in terms of keep doing our service, and once again, I'm going to say this word a lot of times, just being consistent. And I know many countries doesn't have the ability to go into the water year round, but we do. We have 80 degrees water all year round. We are super consistent in terms of surfing. Maybe it's not epic every single day, but for surf therapy, we do have waves every single day. So we kind of develop our program in 4 cycles during the year. So it's kind of trimestrally. We're working with kids. So it's a 10-week per cycle. We were doing, in the research, we were doing 2 sessions per week. Nowadays, we are able to do 1 session a week, unless we have people that come from other countries, and then we will program surf therapy sessions during the week with our surfers. It's a one-on-one instruction every single time. We use life vest. We use big boards in terms of the flotation, because we're surfing with the kids in the same board, so we need that volume in the surfboard. But it has to be a one-on-one. As we know, surfing could be the best experience, but it also can be a traumatic one. And look, parents are very hesitate at first. Their kids are young. Kids most of the time won't go with anybody, even grandparents or other family members. And come these surfers at the beach, with long hairs, with beards, saying, "Look, I'm gonna get your kid better." And so at first, I kind of hesitate. They are saying like, "Are you gonna go out there?" And like, "Yes, don't worry. There's a sandbar, and you're gonna see us working all the time. We may get out of the board at some time because we work with muscular tone and other things that we're going to talk about." So we gain the respect. We gain the respect by being very professional and by getting results really fast. Okay. So apart from that intervention of surfing and being a clinician, we also included speech pathologists and occupational therapists, and we included 10 additional hours of activities at the beach. And it's more sensory wise to keep working with the kid. And most of these therapists will tell us, "Look, the kid works better at the beach than at my office." So that was something we started documenting also. He was really accessible after the surf therapy session. So how does surf therapy help children with additional needs? And as I told you guys, we started working with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, but we just open up to every single kid that had some developmental delay. It was speech, motor skills, emotional situations, attention deficit disorders, all these situations that can interrupt in the development. We have a tool that works. So through the program, participants have shown improvement, and this is overall, in their social interaction at first, and we stated the social communication aspect that got better. School performance, that was something that kind of shocked us a little bit. We were not expecting it. We were expecting better conduct maybe, but not to do better in school. But it was obvious because focus and concentration increased a lot. As you know, if you practice surfing, nothing else happens if it's not our full concentration going down a wave. You're not nothing at all. It's just full concentration there. And we are able in our surf spot to catch a lot of waves in a surf therapy session. So our surf therapy session is a whole hour one-on-one. So in a whole hour, we will repeat this a lot of times. And that kid will start to learn, okay, this is focus. This is what I have to actually do in other scenarios. And something that we were really proud of also is that things that they were learning at the surf therapy, they were doing in their day-by-day basis at home, at school, which extrapolates that learning process. There was a lot of sensory regulation, self-regulation, and this is super important. In Puerto Rico, for some reason, we are seeing a lot of sensory processing disorder. Even if the kid doesn't have autism, he will have very hypersensitive in most of their senses, audition, eating situation, skin. They feel really uncomfortable getting hugs and things like this. And at the beach, we are able to stimulate all the senses simultaneously. And that helps that kid to self-regulate and organize himself. And we thought at first, well, okay, this is happening at the beach, but how long it's staying with the kid? Well, it stayed a long time. We obviously, as any therapy, want families to participate every single week. That's how we can guarantee that it's going to get better. But still, there were kids that were participating maybe 2 times a month and still were doing better and self-regulating. The other issue that we saw a lot of improvement was speech and language, and just a lot. Like non-verbal kids started verbalizing. People were talking about miracles. We were like, no, we are stimulating really well. And how we were able to do that? When you stand up in the surfboard, we were activating the vestibular areas of our brain. And vestibular areas of our brain connect what we call Broca and Wernicke. That will be the areas of our brain that help us to verbalize motor-wise. So a lot of automotor gain. It was also documented. What we call reflexes and motor planning. That proprioceptive area of understanding my body, it got really well. And then muscular tone. Most of the kids with autism and other developmental delays will have what we call hypotonic. That's that his mass in muscular tone is really low, and that's why motor skills in terms of gross and fine will get really affected. But in the water, you got pressure. It's like having some small weights, and that muscular tone getting better and better and better, which related or extrapolated to getting better in motor skills that help in school and in their day-by-day basis. Super important to understand that in order to build trust, not only in our surf therapy programs, but with our population and with our community, that for us in Puerto Rico, and we have been talking a lot about community because we are a small island. Even we are only 3.5 million people here, but in our culture is something really important, that aspect of family and community. So for us, working with the individual is the first step, but we think very broadly. We think, okay, we work with the individual, but in order to impact his family and to educate community. So we have 10 advices, okay? Because it has worked for us. And we know that it's going to work with a lot of you guys in your teams and in your community. So I'm going to try to be general, but try to also give some examples of our program, and Josue can jump in and say. But first of all, just be true to your word and follow through with your actions. There's a saying, actions speak louder than words, and that's true, completely true. So the point of building trust is for others to believe what you say. And we were working with something new, and nobody knew about this. It was the first time that there was being research done, or we were taking kids with disabilities to open seawater in an extreme sport that is called surfing. So we needed to build trust first with our team, to trust on themselves on what we were doing, then trust on the parents to give us their kids in order to go out there and prove what we knew, and then trust on the community because we were getting results on our kids. So keeping your word shows others that you expect from them, and in turn they'll be more likely to treat you with respect, developing further trust in the process. Learn how to communicate effectively with others. And it's obvious that pure communication is a major reason why relationships will break down. Good communication includes being clear about what you have or not committed and what has been agreed upon. So with your team, you have to be very concise and precise in terms of our mission, vision, and the goals that we have, and how we can work together. Okay, this is not a one-man show. It's impossible to be a one-man show in a surf therapy program. Somebody's going to be the face. Somebody's going to be that one that goes to the media or does the conferences or the presentations. But this is a teamwork, and in order to have a healthy team, these are the advices that we are using and promoting. So building trust is not without risk. It involves allowing both you and others taking risks to promote trustworthiness. To navigate this, effective communication is key. And as I told you before, nobody knew about this intervention. So it was more than getting respect. It was all about trust, how people would trust us at first in order for us to prove what we are putting out there. So remind yourself that it takes time to build and earn trust, okay? Building trust is a daily commitment, and believe me, it's been 10 years and we still are building trust with maybe founders, people that want to give us money to the program, but doesn't understand really well what we are doing. And but they trust parents that they are talking really well about our program. And there's a lot of word of mouth in Puerto Rico, and that gave us a lot of respect really quick in the community also, because parents were saying, look, this intervention is working. They are being really professional in that scenario, and my kid now loves the beach, wants to go there. Nonverbal kids were waking up and taking their life vest to their parents, like, take me to the beach, and things like that, when that didn't happen before. And so that really gets excited everybody. So don't make the mistake of expecting too much too soon either. This is a building process. So you start small and you grow as your organization is ready to grow. Don't take that step if you don't feel ready. Okay, don't break down all the work you have done. Just take steps step by step, and you're gonna get there. I guarantee you that. um, in order to build trust, first, take small steps and take a small commitment. And then as you grow, you will more at ease with making and accepting bigger commitments, as we have done. So we started with our organization, very simple. We started doing these like events during the island to start growing and taking this therapy to others. Then we found the opportunity to join ISTO in 2017 when we went to South Africa. We got really excited. Other people were doing the same work with different populations. And from there, we start building and building. And now look where we are. We are a global organization, and we feel really proud of being a small element in the ISTO program. Take time to make decisions and think before acting too quickly, okay? Don't be impulsive. We are kind of impulsive as surfers sometimes, but in sense of your programs, be bold, but be just take time in those commitments, and have the courage sometimes to say no. That's something I had to learn during the process. I didn't know how to say no, and sometimes I overwhelm myself also. And I want to be in my best state in order to help others. So this is a big recommendation I have for others down there. If you want to join there, okay. So be clear about what you have on your plate and keep track of your commitments. Being organized is necessary part of building trust with your participants, families, community team. And Josue helped me a lot on being organized. I'm all this brainstorming all the time, and I want to do too many things at the same time. He's more structured, organized. So build your team with different skills and personalities, which is going to be just better. And we will feed from each other and help us grow as persons and as an organization also. So value those relationships that you have. Don't take them for granted. We value every single person that is involved in our organization. It could be a surfer that comes only to events. It could be somebody at the board. But we put the same value on everybody. We make them feel part of this family. We have become a family, and it's an extended family. And this is what we want people to understand. When you come into our program, it's not something that only happens a couple of hours a week. It's kind of a lifestyle as a surfer. It's something we do to help others, and from that we really get better as persons, okay? So trust often results from consistency, as we have been able to just say it over and over again. We tend to have the most trust in people who are there for us consistently through good and bad times. So this is something that we practice what we preach. We are doing it. So we are there for families. Sometimes I have to get calls during the week, and I'm there. I'm a clinician, so I can help you. We want that. We want community to understand it also. So when we get invited to any single activity, it could be something really small. It doesn't matter. We are going to be there because that's an opportunity for us to educate. It's an opportunity for us to really show our engagement in the community. Develop your team skills and participate openly. Uh, as we told you guys, we are open to any voluntary that can come into our program. But when you're going to be an integrated part of our team, we need to develop skills. It's pretty clear that we want the best experience for our participants. Mistakes can happen. That's okay. Surfing is unpredicted sometimes. A set can come and you're in a bad position and you just got run over, or you were surfing and somebody's in the middle because there are other people in the beach and you just have to board the board with the kids. So we have all these techniques that we need to show other surfers on how to act in certain ways. uh, we got other people at the beach. Sometimes people are drowning, let's say, and we have a protocol on getting two kids in one board, and then one of us will go out there because there's always at least one certified lifeguard in our sessions. So we have the skills to work with every single situation that can happen at the beach. We are responsible. That's how we feel. We are the experts out there, so we are responsible of everybody out there, and we act on it. And we get a lot of respect also, being good surfers, acting upon any situation that comes in the beach, and just being able to surf with a kid that could be overwhelmed. It gets a lot of respect from others. You need skills in order to do that. So take what others say into consideration, show that you are listening actively, suggest your thoughts and feedback in a respectful way, and demonstrate that you're willing to be a part of the team. Be willing to listen to your team. I'm the clinician, but a surfer, and a better surfer that I am, could come in and say, look, I think we should do it this way. Just listen actively and go into it. Let's say, okay, let's try it. Let's give it a try. Let's see if it works. And if it works, we will incorporate it really quick into our program. So we're very flexible on recommendations and things that we have to change in the program during the course of the surf therapy.
One thing that I want to add in my personal experience is when I first started with Giovanni, I'm a bodyboarder. I was not a surfer by then. And the first few sessions, I felt really scared about handling kids by myself. So I had to build that trust in myself that I could handle this, right? And I just started as a spotter, right? I would like swim with the kids and just be like where the waves end and whatnot, and just cheering and whatnot, and just looking at how the surfers were managing these kids. Eventually, Giovanni kind of pushed me like, "Hey, dude, you think you're ready to start surfing with these kids?" And I started and just like use my bodyboarding skills to get the kids on the wave and whatnot. Eventually, with more practice and being more exposed to these weekly surf therapies, I started surfing more and more with the kids and building trust in the parents too, that I had the skills to move on with this therapy. So it's been an amazing, program and part of my life, to be sincere.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. Yeah, remember, parents are watching the whole time, and actually, not only parents, everybody at the beach. All eyes are on us, as I say. So we need to demonstrate that we are experts on this team. Experts, and the expertise is how we handle kids. Since we got them in the shore, went out there, surfed with them, and brought them back. And yeah, it takes time sometimes to feel comfortable. I do remember the first time we were out there with a kid. We were really scared. We want to be honest. Nobody that we knew had done this, and we were like, okay, we do have the skills. We don't know how these kids are gonna act and or react to all these elements, and surfing with a kid that is in constant mobility and trying to jump out of the surfboard. It takes time, to develop those skills. So don't feel comfortable if you are working with kids, and don't feel now that you have the skills, you're going to build up on them. Okay. Don't hide your feelings. We are very emotional down here. I think it's also a very cultural thing. We express a lot our feelings. So be open about your emotions. It's often an effective way to build trust, and that you are a human being. Sometimes you're going to be happy, sometimes you can get mad, or be frustrated by anything that may happen. So if people know that you care, they're more likely to trust you. and if you are honest, people will, and transparent, people will be more engaging with you also. This is emotional intelligence, okay? And it plays a big role in trust. So acknowledging your feelings, learning the lessons that prevail, and taking productive action means that you won't deny reality. This is the key of building trust. Don't always self-promote. At some point in time, I've always been the face of Surf for Them, and at some point in time, some of the surfers really involved didn't like the situation. They wanted to be included. And it was something I didn't even thought about. I thought, they are only letting one or two people into that TV channel or into the radio. You cannot have the whole group. But I've been consistent now, just saying thank you with names, proper names. Thank you to this surfer, and just letting people know who is our team, who is there every single session, who is passionate and who is consistent, and who is our family. And teams will like that a lot. And I think it's that patting on the shoulder that, more than parents saying, just acknowledging that Puerto Rico knows who is this team, or the globe knows who's this team. Okay. um, in terms of leadership, teamwork increases trust on others. So just appreciate and recognize that team that you have and put value in it. Dedicate time to them. When we got sponsors, we want to also bring these uniforms and all the things that I provide them, because they're voluntaries. We give us an stipend to surfers because of their time, but it's something that you do with your heart. There's no salary here, and if you're part of that team, it's because you really care and you want to be part of that team because you feel proud being part of Surf for Them. So help people whenever you can, and this is something that goes way beyond the surf therapy session.
Mhm.
So helping another person, even if it provides no benefit to you, builds a lot of trust. And authentic kindness helps to build trust. And we have been really well, or we have done really well on this. We give the extra mile,
Mhm.
and we have been doing it for many years. um, People just know they can call us and reach out to us, and we're going to be there. Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that we often see on the beach is just like random people coming to us and saying like, "You guys are angels. You guys are sent from heaven," or stuff like that. And we're like, no, this is the way to go, right? This is how we should all help each other, even though not related only to the surf therapy, only with the kids. It's just a matter of, if you see someone having trouble swimming on the beach, you go help them. If you see somebody that an old lady, an old man trying to walk on the beach, you help them out. Everything that we can do on the beach to make everyone to feel in this comfort zone that everything's okay and whatnot, we do. We just want to create that sense of community, and that we're there to help everyone on the beach, right? That really builds trust from the community. People see it and they're like, you know this is the really good way to go. This is how we should all act, even though when we're on the daily basis. So it's just a matter of implementing that uh, mode of acting when you see someone in trouble, and just bringing the help that you can.
So people see us as role models, and when you are seen as a role model, you have a huge responsibility, because people will see you and act as you are acting. So this is something that we are super consistent all the time. And as Josue was saying, it's not only for the kids and family. We have eyes on the whole beach and in the community, and we're there. When people are in need, we are just gonna be there for them. The last but not least is admit your mistakes. Okay, we do make mistakes during the way. This is a learning process. So when you attempt to hide your mistakes, people know that you're being dishonest. Don't just say, "Look, it was a mistake." The other day, something happens to us in our organization, and we just wrote a letter and we just say, "Sorry, it was our mistake. We didn't realize that somebody in our organization made a mistake, and it's on us to recognize that mistake, even though we did not make it. But it was somebody that represent our organization. Just be honest, look, it was a mistake, won't happen again, and we are taking proper actions to correct that situation also. Okay, this is because they perceive you to be more like them if you do this. Okay, and everyone makes mistakes. So if you pretend that you don't ever make mistakes, you'll make it difficult to others to trust you. Okay, because it's unnecessary difference and there's no perfection. So just to do a conclusion, because we are already behind a schedule. As we well know from scientific literature, simplified surf can reach out a sense of auto-realization in children, youngsters, and adults as well. And based on the results of previous studies, there is the scientific evidence necessary to establish that surf therapy is an alternative, non-traditional method, very effective in the development and stimulation of social and communication skills in children with ASD and additional needs. And just to make closure, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a very beautiful journey, and we're just in the start of it. And it's been very satisfying also to see like a small group of people that started in 2016, later on 2017, more of us got included. 2018, more people got included. Now we have a lot of organizations and a lot of countries. So we want to applaud Chris. What ISTO have been able to do is astonishing. And we feel very proud of being part of this organization. And this is going to be a beautiful journey. And please let others know we're here to collaborate. And this is what we are. We are collaborators. And if we more collaborators jump into this journey, we will get others to be exposed to this beautiful therapy called surf therapy.
We got two questions so
Okay.
far.
Let's go for it.
Question number one: many surf therapy programs focus solely on participants. Your program uniquely works with parents as well. What motivated you to start teaching the parents to become safe instructors?
Perfect. First of all, I wanted to parents to understand that it wasn't all the time that we had to do the work. We wanted to give those tools or those skills to parents also. But it actually started because a parent told us, "I want to go out there,"
Yep.
and we were like, "Let's go out there," So at first it was something that we wanted, because I have a brother with Down syndrome, as I told you guys, and I understood before being a clinician that this is something that if you don't do as a system that we call the family, it's not going to work. So you need to provide the system the tools and skills in order for them to also keep doing it. I don't want people to depend on us. I want people to know that we're there, but that we can teach them also how to do this. And they look, we are an island. We are super exposed to the ocean,
Mhm.
and parents can go to the ocean every day of the week if they want to. So if we teach parents on how to these skills on how to serve with their kids,
Mhm.
and it was a process. Obviously, at first we put parents in surfboards just right next to us, and have the experience. We start seeing the kids recognize that their parents were there,
Mhm.
and they were reacting to it, and it was like, oh, this is good. Then we got parents in the surfboards with the kids, and we were just laying in our bellies with the boards, just trying to have control.
Mhm.
Then we started putting parents on their knees and helping kids just stand up. And at some point, parents started standing up on the board and standing with their kids. And that experience, parents were saying to us, look, this is incredible. This is helping build in our relationship trust also with my kid, and started to engage more in a day-by-day basis.
One of the things that I want to add is that one of the parents that made that approach to us, and we had the opportunity to show him how to serve with this kid. He not only serve with his kid nowadays, he also bring his kids for kayaking, boating, snorkeling, and all these other stuff that expose the kids to this environment, right? So that kind of developing not only surf therapy develop the parent to do these other activities that will bring benefit to the kid, and he'll come back to us saying like, hey, I just took the kid 2 hours of kayaking, and he's just like completely stoked in the back of the car. So it's just a matter of creating that trust again and making the parent feel comfortable that they can do this with their kids, and they don't have to be just waiting for every Saturday to come with us. But yeah, it was a really, really nice experience to see parents becoming part of this. I got one more question here. Has COVID shaped or impact your product?
Yes.
Big time.
Definitely. Uh, as any other country, we had a lot of issues with COVID. At first, it wasn't as bad as in other countries, but at some point, Puerto Rico, uh, a lot of people stop here if they're coming from Europe or if they're coming from the States. So yes, we had a lot of issues with COVID. It
Yep.
actually also bring issues in terms of our insurance and policy, and we had to restructure and do other protocols.
Mhm.
So at some point, we had to stop doing the surf therapy.
Yeah, at some point the beaches were also
Yeah.
closed completely, so we had to completely stop the program. We weren't know where this was going, and little by little, as they started opening back and whatnot, we certainly tried to find this way to make the surf therapies, but we had to stop again. And it's been quite a challenge, like everybody else, right? Like it's impacted everyone, but we finally think that soon we will be on the water. I think probably by the end of November or something like that, we should be back on the water. But as of now, right now, we had to stop completely the surf therapies.
Yeah, so we were able to do the whole summer because things got better. But then during last weeks of July and August, things started going not too well. So a lot of hospitalizations and people dying about COVID. So we went back again to just shutting down a little bit time. So August and September, we have not been able to do the surf therapy sessions, and we just took this time to also get better in other areas to do proposals. So whenever we are not in the water, I just write stuff and look for funds, and it has worked. We got a very good proposal right now with Fundación Comunitaria, which is a very important organization in Puerto Rico, and we actually are gonna get recognized next month because of our work. And this is something that we feel really proud when other organizations or institutions are recognizing Surf for them because of their work. This is also a motor that keep us like with a lot of energy. It's not the money; it has never been the money. It's just proving others that we have great tools and getting more people to respect the ocean and to understand this lifestyle. It has been a lifesaver for us. It's part of our daily basis, and it's kind of weird in Puerto Rico. We are an island, but a lot of people don't have the skills in the ocean. The symbol of Puerto Rico is called a jíbaro, which is a person that comes from the mountains because we have beautiful mountains. But we are also, or we have the responsibility also to protect our oceans and educate more about the oceans and the things that we can do, all the activities we can do, and showing people that it has a therapeutic benefit. It has also opened the doors for being more respectful or more conscious about this ecosystem and how we have to protect it. So yes, I as Josue just told, we hope we are back next month in full
Throttle.
yeah, and maybe our maybe we are very privileged because we can do it all year round. So when things like this happen, we can shut down a little bit and just pick up as soon as we can because we have the availability. So this is an open invitation for everybody. We do want a lot of people to come down here and see our scenario and see how we work with kids. And at some point, I hope we can be host also to a conference. We do have the infrastructure and the place to do the conference, but also to go into the water and do a lot of sessions. And we are super excited at some point to be able to do this. But it's an open invitation. We are here in Puerto Rico. We are very open doors as a country and as a people. So if anybody wants to have the experience with all, feel comfortable to contact us through Chris, through our pages. We have Facebook and Instagram. Our webpage is not up right now. We depend on volunteers, and we have not been able to work on that. We put our efforts where we have to, and that's service. We put all our efforts into service and into writing proposals in order to get the funds to provide those services, because most of our patients go free of charge. They don't have to pay anything for our service. So then again, thank you very much for the opportunity. We wanted to be physically in the UK. It was not possible this year, but I hope I can see everybody next year and do that big hug that I like to hug everybody, and people know I like to kiss and hug. So thank you for the opportunity. And I hope this information is of value for you guys and your programs.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's so great to hear about your project in Puerto Rico, and I am definitely going as soon as I can. This is it's been a great presentation, and we really appreciate you being able to join us all the way from Puerto Rico. So thank you so much, guys. It's great to hear from you.
Hi, guys.
Okay. Nice to see you guys. We'll hopefully catch up with you soon. Bye. Okay, it's lunchtime. So we've got quite a tight schedule for lunch. So we're leaving this part of the building and we're going outside the main doors, walking carefully through the car park, health and safety first, into the main entrance of the hotel, and walking down the stairs into the cafe on the right-hand side. And lunch will be there, served out, ready to help yourselves. We need to be back here in an hour, but I'm going to start pushing people back towards this part of the building by about 10 to 1, okay? So we need to be back in this room ready for 1 o'clock. Thank you. See you at the 1.